Hello, today I'm joined by my guest once again, Mr. David Lindley. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for inviting me back. How are
You are
you?
always welcome back, especially when you're sharing nuggets of gold and tips with RM members. This week, I understand you're going to be focusing more on how brand can win those premium listings, if you like.
I am. And the bad news for you is that there's some audience participation involved this week. And seeing
Oh,
as you're my audience, it's all on you, Dave. So no pressure.
I'll have to pay attention to this one then.
Yeah, no more doing your emails for half an hour while someone rambles on.
Cancel all my calls. Okay, we're good. We're good. So with no further ado, let's
Let's do
let's get
it.
into it.
Let's do it. Right. First question as always, can you see a big blue by design screen?
I do see it. Yes.
Awesome. That's the hardest part done. Okay, so what we're going to talk about this week is how to brand to win premium listings, and I suppose within that as well, it's not the obvious thing to say, oh, just use by design. No, it's not that. Actually, what I want to talk about is the mistakes that I've seen agents make when they brand to win premium listings, and they kind of fall into three categories, which we'll go through. So it's less about what to do and more about what not to do, I suppose. And I've been doing this for about 15 years in the premium market, so I've seen my fair share of craziness. So without further ado, let's kind of get into it. So first thing is just remind ourselves very quickly of something we looked at the last session that we did, which is just looking at what the value of the premium market is. So why brands win premium listings, why premium listings in the first place. The fees are higher, the competition is less, and the commission's higher. It's a better place to be. And this that we're looking at on screen here, just as a reminder, is a combination of Landreg stats and what the Simon Ledbetter's Voice of the Agent survey discovered from a survey of over 800 agents. And the upshot of that is that actually over half the fees that everyone in the industry is chasing happens over £500,000. That is where the action is. But that's just a reminder. For more information on all the stats, the first session is probably the place to look. Right. So your friend of mine, Chris Watkin, industry stato extraordinaire, he put a post out earlier. I think it's actually last week now. So he does his weekly market analysis of different towns and cities across the UK, which I'm sure you and I subscribe to, and everyone else should subscribe to as well. One of the things that he noticed in there, which was particularly interesting, was this, which is that, so he analyzes a different town or city every single week, and in only one place out of 70, so he's done this for over a year, only in one place in the entire country is the number one agent for the resi market, also the number one agent in the premium market as well. That only happens once. I don't think he wants to say who the agent is. I know who the agent are. I would say with a degree of confidence they're not a RAM member. Pretty sure they're not. And they are quite exceptional in terms of what they do as well. He said, accompanying this, he said, the key takeaway here is crystal clear that for volume agents, so those in the resi market that want to tap into the higher market, branching out within another brand is essential. So, and I think probably most of us would say, yeah, that kind of makes some sense as well. However, having said that, there are some things that agents do which doesn't work and can end up taking a step forward and two steps backwards sometimes.
But can
Uh,
I just so
please, yeah.
just then ask you, perhaps in simple terms, is the assumption then that a regular agency that sort of have a spread of different listings across different price brackets, if they want to compete in that sort of premium high end of the market, they need a separate brand or they need special branding in order to achieve that?
I think that the evidence from what Chris has shown there is that even if it is in perception more than reality, there needs to be a differentiated offering for those in the premium market,
Right.
which, as we'll get into in a second, is the case for every other industry you can really possibly think of. There's no reason why a state agency should be any different. But let's get into it, and then you can tell me what you think as we as we go. So I think there are a few mistakes agents make, which are relatively easy to avoid actually, and there's three of them here. The first one to share with you is what I call wrapping. So let's imagine, for example, that you and I start an estate agency, David, and naturally we're market leaders. Why wouldn't we be? We're good-looking, innovative, dynamic guys, and we've taken the market by storm. And we think, oh, we want to pick up more of the premium stock because it's juicier. So we think about doing things, and this is the obvious things that come to mind is let's create a wrapper brand. So David and David Prestige, or David and David Luxury Homes, or David and David Signature Homes, or something like that. And I've been in this market for quite a long time, and I very rarely have ever seen that actually work in practice. So I'll give you a bit of an example of this. So, do you know that brand?
I do. Yeah. Been a customer of theirs as well.
Me too. So that brand is what?
Volkswagen.
Have you ever seen that brand?
No.
That's because I made it on PowerPoint and my design skills are crap. But that's kind of an example of it. So Volkswagen could, if they wanted to, create a Volkswagen Prestige to move up the market and sell a more premium car. Um, the reality is that they don't do that. So Volkswagen, I didn't know this actually, but Volkswagen is Volkswagen Group, and they own about 20 different car brands in their stable. So instead of having Volkswagen Prestige, you go slightly up the market, and they have, we all
Oh,
know this is Audi,
yeah.
and then you go a little bit further up the market, Porsche,
Okay.
all owned by Volkswagen. You go even further up the market, and
Oh, wow,
you have
that's
Lamborghini.
interesting.
And obvious thing to say is that if you were Volkswagen Group and you were running that business, you say, "Oh, this is very expensive running Audi and running Porsche and running Lamborghini. Let's just have Volkswagen as our core offering and call it Volkswagen Prestige or something."
Prestige, yeah.
Yeah, and it's laughable because no one would buy that. It doesn't, you want a Volkswagen for what the product of a Volkswagen is, or you would buy a complete opposite end of the spectrum. You'd buy a Lamborghini for what a Lamborghini is. And the brand, the story, the service, the offering, the product, everything has to be differentiated if you're going to charge that significantly higher price point for it.
Because let's face it, we're also looking at three very different customer profiles for each of the three brands on that screen there now. So
Exactly.
Audi is premium, but it's still functional. It's not particularly showy. Porsche straddles the line between the two, so it's slightly more premium sports brand, but still you can get away with driving a Porsche without it seeming ostentatious. A Lamborghini is a statement vehicle, so you're buying that if you've got more money than sense.
Yeah.
You want to turn heads.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting. So you're exactly right. What I found interesting is that Volkswagen actually categorize it slightly differently. They have Core and they've got Volkswagen, Seat, Skoda, I believe, all in that core offering. And then they have what they call, I think they call it performance. And they actually lump Audi and Lamborghini in performance. And then they have sports luxury, which is Porsche. So you'd almost put the two the other way around. But I just think in terms of price point and yeah, like you say, I think you buy a Lamborghini to say you have so much disposable income, it doesn't even matter
Yeah,
anymore. And
it's
that's
a
the message that
statement.
you want to send. So I think an interesting take on a default position that a lot of people understandably turn to is call your core brand something and then add another word on the end of it. That typically doesn't really tend to work. Right. The next one is what I call the Ron Seal test. So this is a good right. What do you think of when you think of Ron Seal?
Does what it says on the tin, right?
Exactly, one of the best pieces of branding that's ever existed. So I actually believe this is a little bit of a personal thing that I can't back up with stats and evidence, but go with me for a second. Is I have a theory that the more premium you go, the less you can say what it is on the tin, which is why Ron Seal, which does nothing other than what it says on the tin, it's not fancy, it just is a very functional product, it does what it says on the tin. So, okay, first brand, I'm sure you know what that is. What do they do?
They make high-end prestige cars, I think.
Yeah, so they're not called Lux cars. I know
No,
it's a bit crass and this is my bad photoshopping. Again, what do?
posh finger food.
Signature supermarkets, they're not called that. And that one?
Watches, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not called prestige timepieces. I just think that this is maybe a little bit more psychological than anything else, but I don't think people, when you go up market, they want to buy something which is clearly labeled as it. I think the more premium you go, the more people want to buy into a bigger picture behind a brand.
There
Because
needs to be a
people,
bit of mystique to it.
yeah, mystique, that's a great word for it. A little bit more than a function.
Yeah.
It has to be a great service and so on underneath, and the function has to, of course, work really well. But I don't think it's actually beneficial to label it so exactly if you are going to label something so exactly. And then the last one is a bit more strategic, perhaps, which is what I call the dilution illusion. And a lot of people say to me, and I completely understand this, is is let's imagine it's you and me. We're David and David. We've been operating in the North Manchester property market for 20 years. We've taken it by storm, market leaders. Everyone knows, everyone knows who we are. Why on earth would I want to move away from that? Why would I want to disassociate myself with that brand if I want to move up market? Well, I'll pick on my good friend and actually co-founder in By Design, Matt Giggs.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know Matt Giggs, he's a industry coach, mentor. You probably can't escape him on socials because he loves a good video on LinkedIn. But he runs a company inventively called Giggs & Co. And Giggs & Co. in St Neots, the town where he operates, are market leaders by quite a long way. And for I think about a decade, they've been market leaders in the resi market. A really fantastic company. He could understandably say, well, two things. One is I want to move up market because I want more fees, obviously. And the second thing is he could say is, well, I don't want to lose my brand association. The good people of St Neots know the brand. Why would I throw that away? And I understand that. So he might say, I'm going to pick up Giggs & Co. and I'm just going to shunt it further up the market. The problem with doing this is that, and actually the problem with doing it is that the stronger that you are, the stronger Giggs & Co. are in this instance here, the more that they resonate with their core marketplace, and the more that they resonate with that, the less they resonate with the premium marketplace. Everyone that is in the premium market would understand what Giggs & Co. are because they're so successful, because their boards are everywhere, because they're up against houses which are 2, 3, 400,000 pounds typically. That's what they're known for. So by shunting his brand up market, it can be done, but the big risk in that is that you alienate actually both sets of customers. The premium market really don't understand that you associate with homes like theirs, and the resi market where you were so strong think, oh, you're too good for us now, you've left us and you're
You've become
dealing with somebody
expensive.
else.
Yeah.
And that's a really dangerous strategy, is to move what is working well. And I'd say probably most RAM members, the brand that you have is working well in that market, otherwise you wouldn't be a RAM member. So I think there's a real clear crossover there. The key to it is to have and keep your offerings specific to their marketplaces. So in Matt's case, he has Giggs & Co. for the resi market, which is going really well, and he has By Design. In his area, it's about 800,000 plus where he operates By Design, and that works really nicely because you have different offerings for different marketplaces. The solution, this is a really interesting book. You familiar with that book, by the way?
Yeah, I am familiar with it. Yeah. So
What
that's the guy that used to be a former sort of hostage negotiator, right?
Yeah, he is. And I thought it was a really good book. And then I found this out almost by accident. And this is a crazy thing. He was also an estate agent.
Was he?
And yeah, and I was like, surely not. And he's written a book, which I'd really recommend to everyone, called The Full Fee Agent, I believe it's called. And he basically takes, in that book, it's all about estate agencies. He takes the principles from that book and with his mentor from real estate, brings that into the world of estate agency. So like you, I thought that book was really good. I'd really recommend The Full Fee Agent because it takes all of that and makes it specifically relevant for our industry. I was like, what are the odds? That's absolutely amazing. Anyway, I think not splitting the difference when it comes to your brand is the right thing to do. And the agents that do succeed in the premium market, they have a differentiated proposition for it. They have a differentiated service for it and a differentiated brand to go with it. And some of those other points we can talk about maybe on another session if I'm fortunate enough to be invited back. But I think that's a really differentiation is probably the common denominator that comes up there.
So they get to secure their core audience without being in direct competition with themselves almost.
It's a great point. Yeah, you don't want to be cannibalizing your own business, and you want to protect the business which is working so well, which is your core residential business. Your premium offering should be additional income to that, which it can be and should be, and is incredibly lucrative. As I'd be happy to show anyone individually for their area, or the previous session that we did as well kind of highlights that on a bigger picture place, I guess. So to kind of finish where we end up with good old Mr. Watkin is, for volume agents aiming to tap into the high-end market, branching out with another brand is an essential thing to do, and there's lots of pitfalls you can make along the way, which I think that can sometimes look like the easier, cheaper option and more straightforward to get there, but actually can end up being a step forward and 2 steps backward and confusing team members, confusing markets, and they're easy traps to avoid when you know that they're there, basically. So that's it. Told you, like me, it's short and sweet, and Thank you for listening, watching, and if you have any questions, David, then I'd love to hear them. Do give
I
me a challenge.
do, I do. So perhaps
Yeah,
if you switch off your screen share, we can see
of
more of
course.
your beautiful face. See, there
Oh.
you go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you're paying for. Um, David, that is fascinating. So what I would take away from that is that actually I think you're quite right. I think the agents try to augment, if you like, their current brand in order to achieve a slightly different look or feel. And it comes off, I know this isn't necessarily marketing terminology, as a bit naff. It just comes off as something that doesn't, so you put Volkswagen there, you put prestige next to it. There's no end of playing around with that on Canva that would make it look any better, because Volkswagen, it looks good. It's got a very discernible brand identity. You instantly see that, what you're talking about, and that has had thousands of pounds, but loads and loads of time as well poured into that marketing to get it to where it is today. And the same with most estate agents that built a brand presence in an area, and they should be really trying to put a wall around that and fortify that as much as possible without wanting to dilute it. But I think one of the things I take away from this is that agents in general sometimes don't invest enough in actual brand when it comes to thinking about design of logos and the look and feel. So you brought out some great examples there. Aston Martin, we all know by association what Aston Martin produces, but it doesn't say it on the tin, as it were. And but the actual brand identity itself is prestigious enough to give you that feeling that you already know what they do, or that you want to learn more about what they do when you
Mm.
see it. I see agents cutting corners on branding all the time when you're starting out and setting up a fresh venture, as you're suggesting. That is something that's worth throwing a few quid at, isn't it?
I think so. It's a few slightly weird things to say, but even if it's for the sake of team members to not, I've seen this as well, where, oh, hang on a minute, if we're David and David, and then suddenly we've got a Lux thing on the side or a signature thing on the side or whatever it might be, who's doing that? Is it you? Is it me? Is it this person over here? Like, what's that offering and how is it different? And it starts to mix up the two and potentially devalue the core offering as well. It just needs to be differentiated, really. And the funny you say about like brand too. And yeah, there is context and content and story behind it and so on. And not paying enough attention to it is dangerous. Just to say something which is slightly odd, but there was a whole, you may or may not remember, the whole debacle that happened in the heyday of online estate agency, of Easy Property. And I remember this was involved in a business that I was involved in at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't like this for the very straightforward reason that no one's going to want that board. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
any of the commercials, any of the offering, anything else. No one's going to want that board outside their house. And the brand itself has to be distinct, has to be strong, has to have the right facets to it. So when I say one last thing, when I started, I could actually show you this. When I started by design, I was like, oh, I'll make an upmarket brand, and how hard can that be? And I almost drove myself insane. Like, I actually almost thought I was going to lose my
Yeah.
mind. I created, I promise you, I'm not exaggerating because I could show you, I have it on a page, 300 different
Wow.
brand names, and they were all terrible. And in the end, I was like, I know I'm not cut out for this. There are things I can do, and there are things that I can't do, and this is this is definitely in the latter camp. And I went to a branding specialist company that just does this. And when you see the way that they work and the time and the process that they go through to actually create a brand, you realize how important it is and how much value there is in doing it properly. And so I fully empathize, by the way, with anyone who is trying to do any of the things that we talked about in that presentation. And I understand why it's a very difficult thing to do without having the foundations put in the right place. And I've regained some of my sanity back now that the professionals have done it.
Yeah, well, it's a great investment though, isn't it? Because if you do sit down with branding marketing specialists, they they are experts in trying to communicate visually, if you like, certain values that you don't need to explicitly spell out. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably one of the key things that I took away from this very fascinating insight into premium market. Thank you very much, David.
No, thank you. Speak soon.
And we will have you back again. I promise. Until next time, folks, thank you.
Thank you.